I'm supposed to speak to you tonight on the topic navigating the global marketplace, strategies for growth. This topic is quite timely, and I will take a cue from what from Babai Daosa. He's laid the context. This is a period where it has become imperative for every Nigerian business to build a strong business at home and also to build a strong business abroad, because income and currency diversification has never been a stronger imperative for our Nigerian businesses today with the devaluation of the naira. We also see the challenge of a lot of companies that have raised equity in dollars, and the imperative for many of those companies to deliver strong dollar equity return. And you cannot do that just by doing a naira currency business. We also see the challenge of a shrinking local market in dollar value as a result of naira devaluation. In my days in tech, every time naira devalues, the volumes that you need to deliver to meet your investor expectation goes up by 3 or 4 times. Those are the challenges that we face in it. So the topic of navigating the global marketplace has never been more relevant. I want to share with you tonight 9 lessons from 3 companies who have navigated the global or international marketplace, and what could be learned from those 3 companies about strategy. The choice of these 3 companies are very deliberate. 2 of them are from Africa, to situate the lessons closer to home in our own local context in the continent, to make them relatable to us as an African business. One of those 2 companies from Africa, one is from South Africa in the beverage industry. The second one is from Nigeria in the media business. And there's a 3rd company I'll be talking about, which is from Asia in fintech and payments. Asia is very close to us. It's an emerging market with similar demographic structures to us in Africa. Now, there's also a deliberate mix. It's not deliberate in the mix of the companies I'll be talking about to have both traditional and tech companies. A lot of times, those of us in tech, we call ourselves, we are the new kids on the block. That the lessons of strategy in traditional business doesn't apply to us. And one of the things I will be doing is to go back into history and talk about global marketplace and see lessons that even fintechs can apply in terms of the things we do. It has never been more true, quoting and paraphrasing the wise man in the good book of Ecclesiastes. There are nothing so new under the sun, even in tech. So our first company today we're talking about is South African Breweries. South African Breweries is a very interesting story that I would describe as a company that started from the mines heap of Johannesburg to becoming a global brewing colossus, started and founded in the gold rush in the 1880s, selling beer to black miners, and dominated the South African market. By the 1990s, South African Breweries had built a near dominant monopoly in the South African brewery market, and it needed to go abroad to build new inflections of revenue and growth. In this period, South African Breweries developed 3 key competencies. The first one is that it developed a competency about low-cost production and supply chain management, built at home in a period of in an environment of huge infrastructure challenge. Note that South African Breweries was focused on the black market, and the black market in South Africa is not as sophisticated as the white market. That's where it built its competency. Also in a closed market in the apartheid days. The second competency that South African Breweries learned to build in South Africa was how to manage institutional and infrastructure weaknesses that are typical to emerging markets, managing volatility, currency risk, uncertainty. If you do business within apartheid, you never know what is going to happen. Those are the institutional context in which South Africa Breweries built its business, managing socio-political, institutional weaknesses and uncertainty. And the third competency that South African Breweries built was the competency to build and dominate building business in among non-affluent consumer market at scale. It was focused on the black market. That's where it was selling beer. And the black market is very similar to the kind of markets you find in any emerging markets or developing countries. Very different from the markets of Europe and America. So in 1990s, when the South African Brewery was going abroad, it deliberately elected that it was going to focus on Eastern Europe. So its focus in going abroad from South Africa was to focus on Eastern Europe, on countries like Poland, Czechoslovakia, Hungary, and a whole lot of the countries that were coming out of communism in the 1990s. Why did it do this? It was because it recognized that the countries in Eastern Europe coming out of communism at the time have infrastructure and institutional weaknesses that were similar to its own market in South Africa. It also recognized that it could cope with those developing country infrastructure situation much better than brewery companies that were from Western Europe and North America if they were going to those markets. It also recognized that Eastern Europe had a large non-affluent consumer market coming out of communism that it could potentially build at scale, similar to the kind of things it had done in South Africa. The Eastern Europe was very unique. It was the least contested part of Europe. The market was large, different from Western Europe and North America, where the entrenched international resource players in brewery business are playing. So South African breweries became a global player, developing a series of acquisition and consolidation of Eastern European breweries, and developing in that pattern, going through emerging markets, even traveling as far as going to India in Asia to become a strong global player. And with the success of building business for emerging markets, South Africa breweries, then as international players for emerging markets, 10 years after it left South Africa, went to North America, a developed market for the first time, and acquired the third largest brewery in the US, the Millers, and became SAB Millers. So look at the pattern. It avoided the big guys, went across the world, Eastern Europe, India, became big, and when it now had muscle, building business for emerging markets, it now went to North America, acquired Millers, and became SAB Millers. Today, South African Breweries is now part of a larger business called AB InBev. It was acquired by AB InBev at $104 billion in 2016. That would be one of the most phenomenal creation of shareholder wealth value in any business. That between 1990 and 2016, in 25 years, it created $100 billion worth of shareholder wealth through a strategic consequence of moves across the world, building businesses in emerging markets and ending up in a developed market. A phenomenal story coming out of Africa. So what are the lessons that we can learn from SA breweries, South African breweries, in terms of navigating the global marketplace, which we are talking to tonight? There are 3 lessons. Number 1 is that to navigate the global marketplace, you should develop a strong competency at home that you can export abroad to the global marketplace. Lesson number 2, you should identify and focus on markets that are similar to home, where your local competency is relevant. Lesson number 3, avoid markets with players that are more resourced than you. Find and focus on least contested international markets. South African Breweries was not stupid when it didn't go to Western Europe and the US until it had consolidated its businesses for emerging markets and become a global player. Case number 2, this day Nigerian newspaper. You are shocked. Many of us here may be too young to know that this day newspaper from Nigeria was once a player in the South African newspaper industry. By year 2000, this day was a dominant Nigerian newspaper. In October 2003, this day South Africa was launched in South Africa with a lot of fanfare as a formidable competitor in the newspaper industry. That was before the now ubiquitous presence of social and digital media. It positioned itself as a quality newspaper targeting the middle to upper upper socio-economic demographic in South Africa. These days, South Africa was very well resourced. It actually acquired 71 CNA stores to complement its distribution channel. CNA stores are books and stationery stores that are very similar to WH Smith. Those of us who know the UK very well. So CNA stores are WH Smith of South Africa. It acquired 71 of them, and those were on familiar distribution channel to this day from Nigeria, because those kind of channel had a different economics, different from the one it was used to at home. The newspaper market in 2003 in South Africa was also very crowded. There were 18 daily newspapers and 30 weekly newspapers. And the business model of newspaper business in terms of building revenues in Nigeria and South Africa was also different. In Nigeria, the newspaper revenue model is that you leverage your goodwill among political and business elites to build strong advertising, huge events, sponsorship revenue. You see all the papers in Nigeria, they do awards. They make a lot of money in those kind of awards. But that kind of a revenue model does not work it's just South Africa is sophisticated for those kind of revenue model. In South Africa, the newspaper business model revenue is strictly based on advertising revenue. So essentially, the business model of this day Nigeria and this day South Africa in terms of South Africa were chalk and cheese. It's different from each other. So this day South Africa struggled with advertising revenue and eventually shut down 1 year after in October 2004. What are the lessons from Nigeria's this day foray to South Africa in terms of navigating the global marketplace? Continue 9 lessons we're going to talk about. Lesson 4. Lesson 4. Navigate the global marketplace. If you must go abroad, ask yourself whether there's truly a market gap where you want to go. Being successful at home does not necessarily mean you'll be successful abroad. Lesson 5. Even if there's a market gap, would your business model fit the overseas market you want to go? Is your business model exportable? Even if there's a market gap in your elected market abroad, is your business the type that can exploit the market gap? Lesson number 6. Objective and dispassionate analysis, not emotions or ego, should drive your business decision in the choice of market if you must go abroad. This is very relevant to a whole lot of Nigerian fintechs who have raised capital, and some of them are going to Brazil, Asia, and so on. Case number 3. We are traveling to Asia. Alipay Kakao of South Korea. Kakao is the dominant internet company in South Korea, with a Kakao super app playing from payment to mobility banking, messaging, and so on. It's like the WeChat of China. Alipay partnered with Kakao in 2017 to provide international payment services to Korean customers, bringing Kakao extensive last mile payment asset with Alipay's international payment rail together to serve Koreans who are paying abroad and Chinese tourists and Chinese diaspora who are visiting Korea who need to pay with the Alipay wallet. The partnership is still strong and growing. The thing to note here is that Alipay is had a last mile business in China. In going to South Korea, the last mile was already locked up. It had to find a different way to play. So what are the lessons of Alipay Kakao in navigating the global marketplace? Our lesson number 7. Your market gap and opportunities may be defined by who you can uniquely complement in the market abroad to amplify their game and yours. Let me just repeat that. Your market gap and opportunities may be defined by who you can uniquely complement abroad in the market abroad to amplify their own game and yours. Lesson number 8. Working with good local partners who have good local market knowledge, channel, regulatory and government relationships can significantly increase your odds for success in the global marketplace. And lesson number 9. Do you have a strong diaspora population abroad? Leverage it maximally, build and accelerate your global play. From remittance to payments, Alipay leverages the Chinese diaspora maximally for market entry, while complementing with local partners to amplify its global play in global markets. So in conclusion, a quick summary of the 9 lessons that we are going to learning from these 3 interesting companies in terms of navigating the global marketplace. And lesson number 1, is that in navigating the global marketplace is that this is number one, you must develop a strong competency at home that you can export abroad to the global marketplace. Lesson number two, identify and focus on markets that are similar to home, where your local competency that you have developed from home will be relevant. Lesson number three, avoid markets with players that are more resourced than you. Find and focus on least contested markets abroad. Lesson four, if you must go abroad, ask yourself whether there's truly a market gap where you want to go. Lesson five, even if there's a market gap, will your business model fit the overseas market you want to go? Is your business model exportable? Lesson six, objective and dispassionate analysis, not emotions or ego, should drive your business decision in the choice of market if you must go abroad. Lesson seven, your market gap and opportunities may be defined by who you can uniquely complement in the global market to amplify their game and yours. Lesson 8, working with good local partners who have good local market knowledge, channel, regulatory and government relationships can significantly increase your odds for success in the global market. And lesson number 9, do you have diaspora market? Leverage your diaspora market maximally to build and accelerate your global play. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening.